Okay, in this video I'm going to go over the calculated variables, clearing the log setup. I'm going to use a VAXA log, and we're going to just start by doing longitude, latitude, azimuth, and then order by seconds. So you'll notice I didn't double click any longer on these two because it'll autofill now. So let's go ahead and plot that. So you'll notice that we're going from 89 something to 89 something else, and then 40 and 40 basically. So what I'm going to do for this example is just split all of these, actually just have them so we can see what it looks like. So this little button allows you to enter the calculator. So we're now in the calculator, we're in the log, but you can change the log and the message used, but it'll default to what was selected from the main screen. And so if I want to create a calculation for x, using longitude in this case. So I click on longitude, and then I can just do divide by 2, and then you got to name this. So I'll call this long half. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So that's going to save this in memory so we can recall it later. And I can also test here, so I can run a test and see what it looks like. So if I have the button checked here, so if I'm going to use 1 for any of the variables, just so it's easy to see what's going on when you run a test, you'll notice that 1 divided by 2 equals 0 in this case. And the reason being is using 1 and 2, the interpreter interprets those as integers. So when you do an integer division, it's going to do a round. And in this case, it's going to round down. So since we're dealing with SQL language, we can just do cast as float. And then we can also cast the 2 as a float. And then we should get the actual float representation. So the functions and buttons shown in the calculator are one thing for creating the calculations, but there's a lot more logic that can be put into the query, and casting and if and and statements, things of that nature. And you can just type in this window. You don't have to use the buttons. Alright, so we've tested out our formula. Most of the data that's going to be in longitude is going to be float data, so it's automatically going to do the float thing, but you can use the cast. So just dividing longitude by 2 in this case. I submit. When I submit, it's going to test that it's a valid function. It'll give you an error code if not, explaining what needs to be fixed. And then the log gets put into the x-axis. And then if I go ahead and do the same thing here for latitude, actually let's get rid of that. So you'll notice I can just replace variables. So if I have a previous equation, calculation, I can just highlight the variable that I want to replace, and then just click it, and it'll end up replacing that. So let's go ahead and test this once. Half is what we should expect in this case as well. We're going to change this to 3. They're going to get 1/3. Let's go back to 2. Save this. Cancel. I'm going to do lat half this time. Submit. And then we'll go ahead and hit this again and do azimuth as half this time. So get rid of that. So now we replace that with azimuth. Let's go ahead and change. Go ahead and save. And if I edit and I do a recall, azimuth half, then I'll get the same formula. It looks a little bit different because it's been formatted for a query. Go ahead and run a test. Okay. So now when I plot with things halved, you get half the values for both axes.